Do you want to start? This is hilarious, by the way. It's like I love this audience. Oh, it's Justice Bombs right now? Oh, okay. Oh, wow. That's cool. I mean, this is going to be fun. We're going to get to know each other. So I'll spark it off.
Spark it off.
Spark it off. So we're here at EVO 2018. This is a panel of amazing developers who are showing at the Mix Showcase. So if you haven't checked it out, we have 17 indie games there. Amazing games, all across the board. Some fighting games. There's beat 'em ups, puzzle games, stuff like that, and we kind of came to represent our love. I'll speak for myself because I love fighting games. I make beat 'em ups, but I also am the founder of the Mix, which is a platform that we use to help other indies gain exposure. Because when we were developing our game for the first time, we were in an incubator in IGN, and we did not get any media exposure. We were heads down in the game. And if you guys start making your own games, you'll see that when you're a small team, you're hustling, trying to make the game, get your artists to do this, this, and that, but you don't always have the time to have, or the money to do the marketing yourself or get someone to market for you. So it's really helpful to build these communities. And so the Media Indie Exchange we came together to try to build something, a community, a platform where we could raise each other up, help promote each other's stuff, and then our contacts would, help that as well. So without further ado, this dude's gonna be moderating.
Hi.
And we'll go through our background one by one.
Sure.
Hello, Dan.
Hi, everybody. Should we maybe real quick do some introductions?
Yes.
My name is Matt. I am the producer for the new Toe Jam and Earl game. It's coming out this year from Human Nature Studios. And then to my right, we have Justin from the Mix, as well as Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, so in Terabang Entertainment, we're working on a game called Jay and Silent Bob, and we also, Jay and Silent Bob Chronic Blunt Punch. So you know where that title is going, basically. And I thought whatever. This is hilarious. And I also work on the Mix. I already introduced myself, so.
I'm Jesse Wright. I'm working on a 3D arena fighting game called Black Salt Corruption. This is my first time being at EVO. And yeah, Justin had contacted me and was telling me about what the Mix does, and it's been a really cool experience.
Yeah. All right, I'm Ted Park. I'm the project lead on At Sundown. So At Sundown is a hide-and-seek shooter where you become invisible in the dark. And this is actually my second time at EVO, so glad to be here.
I'm Sam Mang. I'm making this game called Zarvot, which is about these cubes in this crazy arena, and they fight each other and stuff. Yeah. It's sort of a fighting game, but it's more of like a shooter. But it's has fighting game roots in a way. It's the first time I'm at EVO. It's pretty awesome.
My voice is probably going to be totally thrash because I'm screaming the whole time, but my name is JC Salinas. I'm the creative director of Ask an Enemy Studios and the sole employee, so it's just me. Working on a game called A Dual Hand Disaster Tracker. It is a split-screen, single-player, twin-stick risk 'em up in which your score is meaningless unless you exist. That's a mouthful, but it's fucking awesome. It's basically playing Galaga and Pac-Man at the same time, getting a high score. Your score only matters if you can leave with it, so you got to call it. You can't just go and die. You have to be conscious of what your score is all the time.
Cool. So we're here kind of to be of service to y'all. So we definitely, we want to try to drive the conversation to, fit the things that you want to know. But before we kind of get into that, I think it would be better to know a little bit more about how we got started in the industry. So kind of just going down the line, anyone could feel free to jump in. How did you get started? I think it's very interesting knowing how people figured out how to actually find that inroad into becoming a part of the industry.
Well, I'll go ahead and take that. So yeah, I always wanted to make video games, and I actually went to school for communication, so I didn't do anything with game design in school. I'm from Indiana, and there weren't really a lot of options near there for game design. But yeah, it was around like 2013. I just kind of looked up different like tutorials, was going through the Unreal forums, and just like, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna learn how to script and code and just do this myself, because I'd been wanting to make a fighting game for so long. And from there, I just started, you know, prototyping some different demos, doing some stuff in like blueprints, and yeah, building a team, and started talking to more people in the forums, and I'm here.
I got a question real quick, because this is random, but introspective stuff. You said you did security before that.
Yeah, I actually used to do security. Yeah, it was my brother owned a music company that brought in like a lot of different artists to Indiana, and so I did security for that.
How did the transition happen between that?
Well, really, that was just something I was doing like with my brother, because it was like, you know, it's his company, and then it was fun, and I also got to meet like a bunch of celebrities, so it was pretty cool.
That's dope.
So yeah, you said that you built a team. How did you build a team? Did you have money saved up? Did you give people equity in the game? Did you just with friends? How did that work?
So at the time, I actually was working like 2 jobs just so that I could hire an artist and a 3D artist, so like a 2D artist and a 3D artist. And then kind of did it in steps. Like once I got art done, then I moved to the next thing, and just threw my money there and was like, okay, now I need programming, I need animation, and just step by step. And everyone that I was working with ended up being like permanent team members. So, yeah.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Sure.
I'd say my situation's kind of just really lucky. So I went to USC for games programming. Southern California, by the way, not South Carolina. Let's clarify that one outside of LA. But yeah, so we worked on this game project kind of as a group of friends, just being like, hey, this would be a fun game to make. And then our professor kind of had connections, you know, to the industry, and he knew a guy who worked for 505 Games. So he, you know, got his connections to like publishers, and then all of a sudden it was just like senior year, he's like, hey, there's a publisher that's interested in taking your game commercial. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like straight out of college, finding a publisher. I mean, yeah, that's like, it's such a...
You're working with Versus Evil?
Yeah, Versus Evil.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Okay.
So, the guys that publish Banner Saga. And yeah, now it's like my full-time job, just making this game happen.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's dope.
But I mean, you clearly had a product that, you know, like they aren't like a favor-based company. They clearly thought that your product had enough, you know, something in it that they could make a profit off of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I guess, how did you get to a level of quality that you felt like that, or the professor felt like this was good enough that they could pitch it?
Yeah, I think there's some sort of like baseline you just have to get your product to where you can kind of like put it in front of someone and they'll immediately see the value in it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, this is fun. I want to play this
Cool.
like thousands of times. So, which is really hard. It's probably like the hardest thing for any developer to figure out. It's just.
I got a quick question regarding that. So did you have to, I know you knew someone, did you have to pitch to Versus Evil? Like, did you have to go and say like boom, 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 have decks or anything? Or was it just kind of?
It was funny. It was just like, we kind of gave our connection, you know, a bunch of Steam keys. And then he just like passed it along to, you know, other publishers. And then
cool.
Versus Evil was the only one that actually bit, you know. And then afterwards, he saw our pitch deck. I mean, yeah, we had like a pitch deck ready, but you know, not. I think nowadays it's like publishers are busy, you know, getting through all these games, so they usually just like, you know, go through the game and, you know, see if it's worth anything before, you know, looking at like the presentation. So.
That's dope.
Cool. Anyone else?
My story can take a while, so
Okay.
you go last.
I kind of want to tie that question into another question I have here, which is about, you know, how do you fund your games? So, you know, indie development is not easy, and, you know, a lot of times if you are not coming from a place of inherited wealth, or you work, you know, a lot of jobs or whatever, you know, if you don't have a lot of money, how do you put together your game? Or if you do a Kickstarter and you run out of money, or you get into a project and you don't realize just how expensive it's going to be. Does anyone here, I guess, have any stories about either raising money or when you ran out of money, how you got more money, or just even just getting started to get enough money to pay people?
Yeah, so I actually, to skip to that part of my story actually, with the Kickstarter, I actually tried a Kickstarter and failed at it, depending on who you ask. I saw it as a learning experience, so stuff like that doesn't faze me at all. It's more like I try to do something, see if I could do it. If I didn't, okay, cool, move on to the next thing. One of the things that like pushes me to do things is myself 100%, has nothing to do with outside forces or anything like that. So for example, going to something about like funding the game, I basically decided to just take responsibility for my own actions and basically get a job, or I've had a job for a long time, but that's kind of the thing, is I suffer through the day job. That doesn't mean I don't apply for stuff like with publishers and stuff. So I've got an interesting story with Versus Evil, where they were asking for games that they wanted to publish and stuff like that. Sent them a couple keys, they never replied. So like, either the game sucked to them, I never find out, but that's kind of the thing, is I've talked to a bunch of people like on the show floor. I love talking to people about how they want to start making games and everything. And they kind of always talk about, I'm a musician first and foremost, so I relate it to like record labels. When I had bands that were always looking for a record label, that just seemed really dumb to me, because you're kind of going about it the wrong way. Yeah. You know what I mean? You should basically write your music, give an absolute 100% fuck about what you're doing. Hopefully someone sees that and then they'll carry on. And even if they don't, you have to own your decision for making that decision to focus on that stuff. I hope that makes sense. Like sometimes I ramble on that a bit, but so that's kind of the idea, is like when I failed at Kickstarter, like a lot of people were telling me, dude, we'd be fucking crushed. How do you deal with it? And I'm like, I failed at Kickstarter. That's it. I moved on. Like, why am I going to let that hold me back? It's like I try to set a goal to try and quit the day job. That was actually the 100% goal I wanted to do with it. So I did ask for more than I should have. But that was the purpose. If I couldn't quit the day job, a lot of my friends were telling me, it's like, well, why don't you do like an Indiegogo and you'd still get some of the money that was given to you? I don't want money. I want to be able to finish this thing. And money, even if it was a partial amount, wouldn't have helped me quit my day job. That was the goal. I couldn't accomplish that goal, so I moved on.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to that too. I did a Kickstarter in 2009 before
anyone
was doing it.
Yeah.
And it was the jankiest shit ever. And I thought it was this huge production, and we failed. And it was like, we didn't even want that much. It was like $19,000. We failed. We got like 5. Like my mom put in some money. You know what
nice.
I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And so.
And then you get those people that like when it's over, they're like, oh, I'll still give you the money I wanted to give you or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And not to say that's a bad thing, because like, oh, well, it was only $600. It's just the idea of, again, what's $600 really going to help you with? You know what I mean? Like
when I think the thing is like when you're passionate about it, it's like it's your whole world, so you get crushed more, because when you put it out there and you don't get the, you know what I mean? You don't get the eyes or the visibility you thought you would.
Yeah.
It kind of, that diminishes
the
value of it. I mean, at least to an extent for a period of time. Right. I kind of came about it, and I'll be really brief, but I came about it as an entrepreneurial like enterprise way, because I want a studio. So I have 10 people working on our game now, and at that point I had 6 or 7 people. So we were trying to do a Kickstarter to raise the initial funds to start the game, but I turned to angel investment and that kind of thing. Got an angel investor on board, but I utilized all of the opportunities that I had, even if they were just kind of a visual opportunity. Yeah. Like like I said, we were in the IGN incubator. So we were in the IGN incubator. I hit up an investor and I was like, hey, look, we're in the IGN incubator. And we got in the IGN incubator, and then like it just kind of snowballed, and every experience stacked on top of each other. And so once we raised that money, and we did another Kickstarter, and we had IGN kind of working with us. They helped us shoot it. Then we had a successful Kickstarter. Then I hit up Adult Swim Games. Hey, we had a successful Kickstarter. We're at IGN. These are our plans. They gave us some money, and then that's how I approach things. I stack.
So you're saying, you're kind of like chaining your wins together.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Like,
You're what, Matt?
What was that?
What was that?
Chaining
Like
wins.
chaining wins. Like it is put in fighting terms a combo.
Appropriate.
A really great advice is that, you know, if you can leverage the success of something and bring it to the next success, like if you can have a Kickstarter, even if you don't raise a bunch of money, but you know, you hit your goal, and if you figure out, okay, like that, like now we're from a position of power, how do we turn that into the next win?
Well, you know what? That's cool. I'll take that, but I actually think it's more action than anything else. Because if you base it on outcome, then it's like you're saying, Justin. Like you kind of, if the outcome doesn't meet your expectation, you get crushed, right? But you committed the action. Like you actually did something to try and accomplish a goal.
Yeah,
that's more important.
My whole thing is like, I moved from San Diego to San Francisco in my car, packed all my shit and moved there for this one opportunity with nothing. And this is going to happen or I'll die before this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right on.
So that's where I'm chaining my
so I mean, if I were to answer this question about like how did I get started and like deal with money, like it is if you are not coming from a place of like privilege in terms of money, or you don't have those connections either because of school or because your father is in the game industry or something, you got to be like, a lot of people want to work in the game industry and there's very few slots that, you know, like the game industry is continuing to get consolidated between like, there's only so many games that can hit and be profitable. So if you want it, you got to be willing to like starve basically. You know, when I first moved out to the Bay Area, I was homeless. I was sleeping on the BART. Like I would wait until 4 in the morning and I would ride the BART, you know, for like 5 hours back and forth and get my sleep in. You know, I would just hustle. I'd be like, I can't pay rent, but I got to be where the action's at. And, you know, to a lot of people, they're not willing to like have that kind of lifestyle, right? But I was like, no, I want this. Like, I'm not going to like, I will not stop until I get what I want. And that is sort of what you kind of have to do, you know, like, or you have to like, you either gotta like really grind or you gotta, you know, figure out an equation that's like, okay, if I can get this and this and this, you know, I can make this. But yeah, I mean, I think that's tough because like for me, when I got started, I had to hustle a lot, but I didn't really budget. And I think that was like where where my kind of experience came in, is the more I've been in the industry, I've learned that like sometimes it's not about just working as hard as possible, but it's about also making smart, like, tactical decisions.
Yeah.
I want to know what.
Yeah, please.
I kind of want to know what Sam, some of your thoughts on that.
Oh, I mean, my first thought when you said that was, you don't have to sleep on the train to make it in any game. So, like, that's
No, but you
really
can
crazy.
if you want to.
You can if you want to, and I've heard of a lot, like especially in the gaming industry, like a lot of people I know, they think, like in gaming and music as well, that you have to be like really starving, like a starving artist type, to like be good in games, and like you have to give up everything in your life, and that's not true. Like that's not true. Like, gaming is a job like any other. Of course, it's really, really hard, and the pay is really, really low given the amount of hours and skill and dedication you got to put in. It's like, I kind of think of it like working retail in a way. Like, retail is not fun. You know, you work at like Shake Shack or McDonald's, it is not fucking fun, dude. Right? Like, the hours are shit. You got to deal with all these people. Gaming is kind of like, working in games is kind of similar. Like, you're on the show floor. It's kind of fun because you made the game, but it's not easy, dude. Like, I'm sure all of you guys know.
Oh, dude, I love it more than anything. Yeah.
So you're weird.
Yeah, I love nothing more than showing people something you've worked on so hard. Yeah, it's fucking rad.
Yeah, it's worth all the
100%.
Hours of.
It beats the shit out of the day job. I think that's kind of the thing, is like, you know, the day job sucks, but it's a sacrifice you make to help you apply for, like, you know, mix applications and stuff, and then pay for your booth space and stuff. So yeah, a lot of this stuff does take money, but making the game itself doesn't take anything but your time. Like, you can make a game with the computer that you have right now, right? Because a lot of the tools are available, they're free. Making the game doesn't cost anything. It's getting the game out, showing the game to people.
Selling it.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. So like, I always like to, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong because it's just my opinion or whatever, but I've always felt that like, you work on whatever it is you want to do and everything else is kind of secondary. Because if you start to look at the end goal first, you are very easily going to be discouraged by pretty much anything, because your attention is not focused where it needs to be, which is here, not over here. And that's just my view on that.
I think that's kind of interesting. I think that's somewhat true. I think like you got to kind of have a plan though. Like what is your outcome.
I mean,
Where
I think
you're-
that
what's
like
your
what
end
you're
goal?
saying sounds very like pure, right? Where you're
Right.
like let's make the best art possible, which I love. But at the same time, I do also think that like having a plan and a strategy is also also
Yeah,
pretty important as well.
pretty much what I'm trying to say is like be pragmatic. So basically, like know that what you're building. It depends, and this is more, I guess, based on what your guys' questions is. It's just the idea of creating something that you take 100% personal, and like say for example, someone comes in and tries to tell you, "Hey, you should be doing this. You should be doing this." You have to take ownership for that decision on whether you listen to that person or not. Because the thing is, if you make a game and then someone's constantly telling you change this, and then you end up with a game that's not yours anymore, and then when it doesn't sell, you end up placing the blame on the person who was telling you all this stuff instead of you owning that decision and just making that game all the way through. Like, does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of like, so recently, like we're talking to a lot of publishers right now. So like, kind of going with what you're saying.
Right.
I've been trying to visualize exactly the full end result right now, because talking to publishers, you have a lot of people tell you, oh, this is what we see for the game, or we can see this, or we see this or that. And some of it, though, I'm trying to filter through and see, like, okay, is this good advice? Is this something that does bring something to my game?
Yeah.
And that's such a hard, like, distinction to
Right,
make.
and,
like,
but where
which,
that comes from is it's like the final decision becomes yours, right?
Right.
Like you can take their advice and actually apply it, and if it
Yeah.
works, that's cool. But you have to be like 100% in on that decision.
Right.
Otherwise, you
Yeah,
sit
and it's kind of like, it's scary because it becomes like, is it about making money, or is it about making the best game you wanted to make?
Yeah.
And then they kind of give you, feedback that shows you, oh, okay, we could make a lot of money doing this way.
Yeah.
But that's not really
Like it'll
what I
change your
saw
game
my
design
game
or
doing.
something. Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So actually, I kind of want to use that as a way to segue into publishers. So I'm curious, who here is working with a publisher, and who here is working as an indie? So who here, raise your hand if you are working with a publisher right now for your game.
I mean, I've worked with multiple.
Hell no. Okay. And everyone else is working on a game independently.
Yeah. Indie.
So I'm curious in terms of like what people's thoughts are in terms of, some people believe that publishers can be very, very predatory, right? That like they're coming in, they're taking a majority of your income, for a work that, especially now with flat platforms, like you could put your stuff up on Steam, you could do PS4 cert, you don't need a publisher. So, but they also provide a lot of things that maybe people don't know how to do.
Right.
So I'm curious in terms of what people feel like is when you should take the money or take the deal, when you shouldn't. Just for an example, with my first game, I got a couple offers for around $400,000 to make the game, but they wanted about 70%, 80% of the game, and in my mind I thought, okay, like that's a bad deal because I think that the game could sell more than that. But if they were to come back, if they were to say, oh, we'll give you $400,000 for 20%, I would be like, yeah, of course. And so I'm kind of just curious, like if people had turned down deals from publishers, if they've had shady things, anything like that.
So yeah, we've actually turned down 2 publisher deals because with a fighting game, like, so again, we're doing a 3D arena fighting game, and it's like, I just feel there's a certain publisher you have to work with on that. Like, it's hard to just kind of go with anyone, especially like, being at EVO, you see how the fighting game community is. It's like there's the main fighting game publishers, and then there's everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's like, what I'm a little nervous about is, honestly, is like which deal is the right deal, which publisher is the right publisher for this. A lot of publishers have been talking more so about like other forms of media outside of the game, like all the branding and other aspects, and it's like getting away from the game.
Yeah.
So, it's actually what we're kind of dealing with right now is like, which one to look at, which one is going to make most sense for the game.
It's hard for me to hold my tongue.
Yeah, I know Justin has opinions on
This is what kind of happens, right?
No, the crazy part is, since I've been in the game for like 10 years and I've seen both sides. So I just finished a gig where I was doing consulting for publishing. So I helped publish 10 games. So I see like how things get weird. And the thing about it is I come like with the mix and this type of stuff, like I come from it at a passion standpoint because I'm in it. I'm like, I got my ear to the street. I know how we are as developers and what we need. So that's how I was coming at it. But on the corporate side, the people who I was dealing with, or the higher ups and the executives, or the bean counters, it's a lot different. So I had to battle with them. So the people that you may be talking to on the face of the publishers, they love your stuff, but when you hit you hit the end of, I got to talk to these executives, they may have something different in mind, and it could screw the whole thing up. Like Sam and I, we were talking. I go off on this shit sometimes. But like, I did a deal with Adult Swim Games. I did a deal with this company called Flashman for our last game, Super Comma Man. But I kind of knew what it was, and I knew what I wanted out of it. And I think that like a lot of indies don't know that. Look, you got to do your due diligence on them too. They're gonna do their due diligence on you. They're gonna see because indies will get put in this pocket where they think that this publisher is going to do everything for them, when really you're a notch on their belt and they're building a portfolio. So if they're doing that, then you got to have other procedures on how you're going to market your game, or tell them how you want them to market your game, and have your own strategy. So if you need a bank, hey, they're going to give me $60K. So I'm going to use them as a bank, just like they're using me for another notch on their belt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Where some developers will just be like, oh, they're going to give me $60K when they have $1 million, like a quarter. You know what I mean? To spend on this stuff.
I think that's also can be really tough when you're like just getting started and you know, like if you have never seen money, right? And all of a sudden you get a piece of paper that's like, oh, we want to give you $100,000, $200,000 to go. Why would I turn that down? I'm not even gonna look into it. When you don't realize that they're sitting on millions of dollars. Like you might be able to get a better deal, or this publisher might not be a good fit for your game.
Right.
You know, like you're saying, like if you work with an Axis or or if you're making Capcom or publishing or something, you know that they have those inroads in the tournaments and different marketing opportunities. Maybe it's better that you work with them and have to give them a higher cut than a smaller cut for someone who's just like some mom and pop operation that has no inroads in the industry.
I think there's an important note there, like when you mentioned they write you a check or whatever for a deal. I didn't know this when I was first starting, and I got a bunch of publisher deals, but all those deals the publisher gives you, like $60K to make your game, that's not free money, dude. You give all of it back for your sales. So
well, I mean,
none of it's free money.
Well, I mean, it's free money in that, like,
it's
if
a loan.
the game, like, bombs, and the game doesn't make any money back, like, yes, they will lose that money, but they will basically, like, games have a pretty long tail, and like you can like liquidate and fire sale games, and it will suck for you, but they will get their money back generally.
They will.
Yeah, but so like if the company gives you $1 million, that's $1 million of recoup out of the first $1 million in sales, and then they take the next 50% for life. You know. So,
and there's weird there's some people like Indie Fun and like these other funds that are actually pretty cool, where it's like 50-50 until they recoup, and then it goes down and you just double it and that's it. But then there's some that are just like. It's 100% until they recoup. I mean, and if you're taking $1 million,
if you can, like fund your own game all by yourself, like you definitely, it's better to not have to share the pie. But if you're going to work with a publisher, like for instance, if they're going to take half the cut, you need to know, like you have to be sure in your mind that they're going to be able to sell twice as many copies of that game. Because if you don't think that they're going to be able to double your sales, then no reason you should give them half of your money.
And there's also good ways to do it too. Like, I mean, suppose you don't want to spend another 3 years marketing your game or two. I'm over exaggerating, but it's like, look, I got this game, it's ready to go. I want them to market. They can have 30%. They can market it, and then I'm gonna move on to my next game. So I have the time to be more creative. And then you're working on multiple games. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
You got to kind of like, and then after that, you have multiple games in your catalog, and then like you're kind of playing this game where and then you're learning fast, more progressive.
Yeah, so. It's like, are you going to sell your soul to get the goat so you can make a farm later? In a way.
And the thing is, sometimes you need to take the deal, like, because if you need that money, or you need like. But it's good. That's why it's good to have options.
And it's a good learning experience too. Anyway,
we were kind of speaking about money, but not just money. It'd be good to know other moments of distress or hardship during your game development and how you got through it, whether it be financial someone on the team leaving, drama, going to a show and people not liking the game, contractual disputes, anything like that?
I had a situation at PAX South once, but it was all of my own making. Here I am trying to make a game, and I dropped out of school to make a game, so I had no idea how to program, do anything at all. And then I finally got the game to a point where I could show it out in public, and I decided to do PAX South 2016. Bought a booth. I show up. I get my dev kits from Microsoft. I don't know how to put the game on the fucking dev kit. So I needed internet. I had to go from one hotel to another, and it wasn't working. I honestly don't even remember what the hell happened, but I got it working, and yeah, that was awesome. Like, crisis averted. But like, the thing is, that day, the day before PAX South, when I'm going to show it to all these people, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And like, here I am thinking I'm a game developer, and I'm like, I felt like absolute fucking ass. But yeah, like, terrible, dude. Like, seriously, like, my girlfriend was the one person with me, and if she could tell the story, like, I was cussing like a motherfucker. And yeah, it felt bad. Like, talk about getting crushed. Like, Kickstarter was nothing compared to that one moment. Because you feel fake, you know? It's kind of like that imposter syndrome thing that everyone always talks about, when you kind of finally do something cool and you feel like, I don't deserve this. Like, what am I doing? How is this happening? Yeah, it was terrible, but it worked out. And, you know, you just overcome it. You're gonna have moments like that. You're gonna have moments where you feel like you're just not gonna do what you're gonna do, and then, you know, it just happens. Or it doesn't, and you just move on. You seriously. I mean, I guess you could probably tell the personality I have is just like, fuck it. Like, if this doesn't work out, move on. Like, there's no reason to dwell on the past. You know, learn from it, move on. Focus on the future.
Yeah, running a company is filled with all those moments.
Is what?
Running a company is filled with all those moments. Because it's like, no one actually tells you like all like
oh, yeah.
they don't give you a checklist. It's just like, you have to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like,
Yeah.
how many of us here have, you said you went to college, right, Justin? Like the
I have a
AI or
master's
whatever?
degree.
Yeah, so you graduated though.
I
You went through
graduated
the whole
and I
thing.
went on to get my production and business degree. Yeah.
Okay, cool,
And
cool.
my, what's called my master's now.
Right. Did anyone else here go to college for game design specifically? No? So I'm the only
guess.
idiot? Okay. Yeah, so if you guys are thinking about going to game design school, that it's not that, it won't work for you. It didn't work for me at all, because the way they were teaching was fucking terrible. So that's why I dropped out of game design school. Game design school, that's what I always say. So if any of you guys have questions about that kind of stuff, like, that's something you kind of have to answer for yourself, but it's good to ask people who have gone to game design school or anything else to see if they teach in the way you want to learn. I learned basically just watching YouTube tutorials and the Unity learning. If you guys are on Unity at all, if you guys are here for wanting to make games, Unity has really, really good tutorials. I made my video game basically watching nothing but that and reading a book on C# that Mike Geig, who's one of the tutorial guys at Unity, wrote, and it's fucking amazing. And he has an updated version of it. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, if you guys have questions, that is the most important thing. If you have a question, answer it. I mean, like, ask a question.
I actually want to hear what Matt has to say, because you dealt with some shit now.
I've dealt with a lot of hardships in my life. You know, it depends. I mean, like, you know, okay, so recently I had some drama with, I had some like employees that basically, like, ex-employees who came back around, and you know, I had to kind of deal with you know, just allegations and things like that. And a lot of it is, you know, like, running a business is tough, because, like, as you're saying, no one teaches you how to do it, and people, the learning curve ramps up real quick. Like, when you first are getting started, and if you have good ambitions, people are all like, you know, go for it, like we want to see you succeed. But then, you know, a couple months in, if you're not, you know, like, Uncle Sam doesn't care if you don't know how to, like, file taxes right, and you're not filing with the board. Like, if you don't, they're going to fine you like crazy, and you're going to be hit with so many fees. If you're not paying people the right kind of payroll, you're not doing, like, the right kind of things, these things will, like, destroy you. And for me, like, I didn't come from a business background, and so I ran my company in a very kind of like Silicon Valley, kind of like no hours, but everyone's hustling kind of way. And because I didn't have structure, we didn't have HR, we didn't have a lot of these things, you know, that was cool when we were first getting started. We were all just friends, 5 people, me, Tony, JJ, we were just hustling. But as the team expanded and as we're bringing on people who you don't know, like you're not like lifelong friends, you got to have structure. You got to have like payroll. You can't be just joking around and being like making, you know, jokes that, you know, like, you know, whatever, right? Like, and the thing is, it's kind of tough to learn that, because when you're starting making games and you're just getting started, you're just like, I'm a nobody. I'm just trying to just make something happen. But as you're trying to make things happen, as you start having employees and you starting to pay people, even if you don't think of yourself as having employees, if you're paying people, you have employees. There's people that you're contracting out. So I think that, you know, for me, it was definitely it was a learning lesson in that, you know, like while I felt like a lot of the circumstances of how I had to deal with that were more political than, and kind of not necessarily super fair in terms of how I had to deal with it. I try to look at it from a very like objective, like, okay, like how did it get this way? Like, why do people feel this way? You know, like what mistakes did I make, you know, in terms of like, where did I not have the gauge on like how people were feeling, you know? And try to learn from those things. You know, like if you have a painful learning experience, whether it be you didn't pay your taxes on time, or, you know, someone's trying to sue you because of whatever, or you run out of money and you're like, oh, trying to like scrounge up money. You just have to figure out, okay, like how did I get here? Like, and you know, you got to be able to beat yourself up a little bit and be like, understand, where did you fuck up? Like, did you not budget? Did you not, you know, think about how this other person was feeling and understand that they might, like, while it might not be a big deal to you, you might be crushing this other person, you know, things like that.
I've been through, I mean, there's a crisis every 3 to 6 months when I'm doing something, like, because I'm doing so much. So it kind of comes with the territory. Now I could like take it a little easier. I'm like, okay, that'll fall through. I'm at ease now. But yeah, when we first started, like I said, we packed up all our stuff. 4 of us moved up to San Francisco. 4 of us lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, worked 16-hour days, and we ended up clashing. And I was the leader, so I would say shit that I should not say. Like when I get the last word, I would say dumb stuff like that. And you can't collaborate like that in that environment. And so that first time, my whole team blew up, and I was left with our game, and I wasn't gonna quit. So I had to hustle and like fake it till I made it with that product at a very shitty like state, and with good marketing, right? And I had to find a new team, and I used what we had again, found a new team. And then we were hustling. We even got IGN engineers to work on the game. Like I got them to work on the game, and then seed us a little bit of money. And I built a new team. And then what happened was I couldn't sustain their payroll. Right. So then they blew up. You know what I mean? So and then it's just like so that's twice.
So I think it's really like that's one of the hardest things I think is like learning to manage people and understanding morale and like. Yeah. Budgeting, you know, and so that way, like, because these things can blow up on you so fast if you're not like watching and understanding where things are at. And one of the things I've learned is that I used to work my ass off, like 90 hours a week. I'd kill myself, and so I was confused when things didn't go right, and I didn't realize at the time that sometimes it's more important that people like you than to be really good at what you do. Like, it's better that your employees are happy and that they feel like they can trust you and they feel like they know that you are confident in your decisions than you spending those extra hours in front of emails, answering stuff, and like doing all this busy work, you know? Because no one cares. No one's going to remember that. They're going to remember, did you listen to them when they had a problem? Did you implement their things? Did you make them feel heard? You know?
And also, like, the visibility of them understanding what you're doing. If you're a small team and I got to do a lot of biz dev stuff, and it's not fun for me, but I have to do it. But they don't understand if I'm like if I'm here, right? I love EVO, right? Or Comic-Con, right? I'm not here. I'm looking at opportunities. I'm trying to connect with this PR person. I was connecting with you and your team and talking about like how can we work together? Yeah. I'm not here, and I'll play video games on the side, but I'm always looking to connect with people and build the network. Like when I went to Comic-Con, because we're doing the Jay and Silent Bob game with Kevin Smith, I wasn't there just, oh, hey, like, you know what I mean? Let me buy some bullshit or whatever. Yeah. It was like I was there and someone's like, hey, I know the Funko Pop guys. And I was like, can I talk to them? And I was like, yeah. And I hung out with people in higher places And anytime they bumped into somebody, then like I was instantly connected. You know what I'm saying? And those like, but when I try to explain to someone who's at the Comic-Con to buy, 90 comics,
Right.
who's working with me, they don't have the same mentality that I do.
Yeah.
So I have to explain what I am doing so they understand that I'm not just fucking around.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be pretty exhausting to have to explain like business stuff, but you have to do it because otherwise they'll think they're just going around playing. And like, yeah, if you're leading a team, they need to know that you are taking it more seriously than anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
And be like, no, everything I'm doing is for the greater picture here.
Yeah. Like my team, who makes the game, or who's working on the game, they're at home working on the game, and I'm here. So I have to say, I'm not partying. Like, this is like I worked for 3 hours last night. As soon as I didn't drink. I haven't drank since I got to Vegas. You know what I mean? I went home and worked for 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
So I want to do questions soon, but one more question I want to ask around, which would be, if you were to give advice to anybody here that is trying to get into the industry, whether it be, advice for getting into the industry or just major hurdles that you face that you wish that someone had told you, what advice would you give to these wonderful people out here?
I would ask them what's holding them back.
I would say the opposite. You should have a
what?
backup plan.
Really?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I would ask him what's holding him back.
And what did you say?
Start from there. And then he said the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Have a backup plan. Yeah.
I mean, because like I think about it, it was just like it's great that I got this opportunity to work on a game full time, and this is my job. But I think about it's like what if like that didn't happen? Like where would you be? And it's always possible because I mean, yeah, I just got really lucky to work on a game right out of college and be my full-time job. But it's like then I think about it, it's like what if that didn't happen? Like where would I be? And it could always blow up on you. Like what if the game doesn't sell? Like then like what are you gonna do? And you want to make sure you have some sort of answer to that question because life is confusing and has a lot of variables.
We should definitely never assume success ever,
Yeah.
because that's how you get into trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course, like give it your all. You know,
Yeah.
if you're going into it, like give it 100%. But you have to realize that you might fail. Like as you were saying as well, like
You will fail.
You will fail a lot of times, and just have a backup plan. Maybe you don't do games full time. Maybe that's what happens.
I would say side hustle. I would not necessarily a backup plan. I would say side hustle.
I'd say, have as many like sticks in the fire as possible.
Yo,
It's like
got like 12 things, and like
Have 'em all burning
3
at
of them
once.
pop off. You're good.
Yeah.
I mean, now I
Because
know.
it's good to be in a situation where you go, okay, I have to drop this thing or I have to give it to a friend because I can't handle all this. Then
Exactly.
the opposite.
Well,
where
see,
you're
but
like,
then I've always thought that doing something like that is like you spread yourself too thin. Like with you, Justin. That's why I'm always wondering like how you're able to pull all this off. Because like I like to stay focused on one thing, but yeah, it seems like you do the thing of like you have all these things.
Well, the way that I approach it though is I build good teams.
Yeah.
Surrounding
Fucking
these
A.
things.
Yeah,
right.
totally.
And the people, I love art. I wanted to be a comic artist.
Yeah.
But I also like the creative direction of it way more,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a fan of the artists that are working on the team, and they're way better than me. So why
Yeah.
don't they handle that? I create the structure. You know what I mean? And
That's
then
a
I
leader,
can still
for sure. Yeah,
direct
totally.
it.
Yeah.
But when I'm back, they get to have their fun in the sandbox, and I'm off building this other thing that's going to help this other thing out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could do that, but the other thing is when I have all of my what is it called, irons in the fire, I know that 2 or 3 of them will work and heat up.
Yeah.
And then like
That's nice.
this is a ridiculous.
No, of course.
But like the other ones will not. They'll evaporate.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean? And the ones that
right.
do hit.
well, and the thing is that also I think that part of it is not being afraid to fail in that. If you swing the bat 6 times and 4 of them you look like an idiot and you totally like do it wrong and no one's gonna remember that. If you hit 1 or 2 nice hits, that's all people are gonna see and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, to kind of speak to the other side of it, like, so something that happened to me, I actually lost my mom in 2013, and she was like the biggest supporter for me making games. So like, you know, because sometimes I'll talk to people and their eyes would like glaze over, like, oh yeah, video games, yeah, cool, you know. But like, so I lost my mom, and I always had my characters as like my desktop background and like my phone background, and that was like the one thing that like got me up out of bed was like, I got to make these characters come to life because
Fucking
my
A,
mom
man.
believed in me and these characters, and I, you know, if I don't take the swing, then, you know, so that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. Because, like, even if I fail, I made the game, these characters, hey, it was real, you know, it happened. And that's really how I look at it is, it happened, I can say that I did that, I can, you know, my mom can look and see, like, okay, this game was made, you know, and that's
Gave you a
that's
purpose, man.
kinda
Yeah.
how I'm looking at it.
Gave you a purpose for sure.
I really like that idea, like of having people who look up to you or look and using that as like inspiration to keep going.
Yeah.
So actually, you know, going to our game, Toe Jam and Earl, we had kind of a morale problem over the last couple of months as I was kind of coming on, and those people weren't really like super happy. And one of the things that I did, and it kind of changed the morale of things, is, you know, we had Macaulay Culkin had a Reddit thread talking about his favorite games, and he was like, "Oh, Toe Jam and Earl's my favorite game." So I was like, "Yo, Macaulay, you should come to the office and play the new game." And so we got Macaulay Culkin to come out with his like, you know, entourage and stuff, and he played the game. He's like, "Yo, this is like just like the original game. I love it. This is whatever." And everyone was like, "Okay, cool. Like if this super fan, this like if he's saying it's good, then like we're on the right track." And I think that really helped things because, you know, when you're in like development hell and you're doing it for years and years, and all you see is bugs and you never see the end in sight, and then you show it off at some expo, like at least for Toe Jam, we show off at some expos, and the early builds weren't received super well, and you know, it's like, oh man, this is gonna suck. No, you know, we're not getting anywhere. And then when you have outside people come in and be like, no, this is great, I'm so excited, and you're like, you look up to them, and you're like, you like my stuff,
Right.
You know, and so I feel like that really like made us want to like finish the game.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart. I mean, that's really good for the audience too. It's like you create there's these moments of success that if you're making a long-term game, you have to latch onto these small moments, and that's what I try to share with my team too. Like if we had this win, like the first time we got into EVO, which was 2011, we showed Super Combo Man at EVO because we went to a fighting game tournament in the NorCal Regionals, I believe, and I talked to Seth Killian. I was like, yo, we're making this game. Can we show it somewhere? And he invited us. He's the first person. That's how this mix started, actually, at EVO, was because I hit up Seth Killian randomly. And I told our team, who was fighting game fans, hey, yo, so we were going to be able to show at, at EVO, and that was like, everyone's scrambling to like make it as dope as possible. We showed it here, and then, you know, some of the dope, like, I think Justin Wong played it, and a few other people, and we got pictures of it, and the team, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're on to something.
It was a moment of success. When we were at IGN, it was a moment of success. Money didn't roll in, but these things kept me going. So I always try to find these moments.
What would you have done if Justin Wong was like, yo, this game's shit, dude?
I would say, why is it shit?
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
You know what I mean?
fuck it. I was waiting for a response. Fuck yeah, dude.
How can we make it better? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's also interesting because like I've met a lot of people who I thought were like my idols growing up, and they, you know, it ended up like they not like my work, or you know, we just never got along. And there's people who I never would have thought would have been like, you know, sometimes you'll find inspiration from unexpected places too.
yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm not a writer, you know, I mean, I'm not a D writer, so I don't give a shit like about celebrity, you know?
Yeah.
It was a big thing to me to like see him play and enjoy. If he didn't though, I didn't.
Well, because it's not necessarily about him being a celebrity. It's that he's recognized as being someone who is so good at that craft.
Yeah,
And he's
I
appreciated.
get
You know what I mean? You can see
There
your
you go.
craft and be like, no, you're doing something
totally.
good.
I get what
you
you're
know?
saying. That's cool.
So yeah, so you know, we talked a lot about some of our experiences. You know, some of us are indies, some of us are working on bigger titles, some of us are in different stages. But we want to hear from you. We want to know what questions you have for us. You know, just feel free, I guess, to raise your hand, and we'll call on you. And you know, it can even just be a topic, and we'll just, you know, it doesn't have to be a direct question.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you.
There are so many ways that video games can be fun that aren't like cookie cutter, $1 million budgets, the same, you know, style. Right. That, I mean, and these feel that all. I mean, things like I was out of Roblox and text-based how it can continue to be profitable for the smaller games as the bigger publishers are coming in and just dominating the market. I mean, you look at companies like Warner Brothers that came in and made that deal with Monolith and just crushed their game. You know, you see what ended up happening with Shadow of War because of Warner Brothers' influence, and you're seeing that happen more and more. There's got to be a temptation in the dealer, like you talk about building on wins and getting more and more money, to take that deal and take that money. You've got to pay more. You know, you've got mouths to feed people, but at the same time, these publishers are coming in and saying, no, this is how we have to change the game, and ways to make it worse. And is there any way we're going to be able to find a happy medium where indies can make a product of power of love and gamers want to play while still being able to distribute and have benefit of maybe getting those loans from some bigger?
So to recap your question, you're saying how are indies kind of going to be able to continue to compete against bigger publishers as they kind of consolidate?
Or make a living.
And also hold your own as we do end up eventually making deals with larger publishers, you know, maintaining the integrity of the game, not letting them come in and dominate and force things like microtransactions and endless clients. You know, they want to be able to say this game is 120 hours, so they want you to put in some useless crap, you know, some skill, it's not fun, or they want you to, you know, instead of putting in stuff that you have for free, make it to where you have to charge microtransactions. And, you know, there's an argument because nobody wants to raise the price point. I personally think that it is time to raise the price point for games just for initial stuff. But at the same time, we got to be calculus. You know, if we're going to sell a certain number of games at $14.99 and a certain number at $19.99, you got to do that math, and then money's got to come from somewhere. So how do you negotiate that with the publishers and keep retaining?
I mean, I'll jump on this real quick.
Yeah.
That's a question of leverage. So if you have a game, like, I mean, right now you can go on social media, you could hire a PR team. It's easier to connect with people now than it has ever been before. It's not free. You can't like just jump in Instagram and just blow up. But at the same time, you have a chance to build your community. If you build everything now, game sales are based on community, right? So if you look at PUBG or whatever, I'm just throwing out that out there because it's really generic. Like they built their game off of a mod, it blew up, and then now they have these deals. Did Tencent buy that one?
Yeah. Tencent's involved.
No,
Yeah,
not,
Tencent.
not PUBG.
I thought that was Fortnite.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No, wait, no, they have both.
Yeah.
They
So
both.
so it's like, I mean, if an indie is dealing with a publisher and they
China
go
taking over, man.
and they go in raw with nothing but a beautiful game, like the Cuphead, for instance, they're not going to get as much as if it's Cuphead. They have this ridiculous community. People are going, then they're going to ask them, wine and dine them, and they're going to be like, how do we get you? What do you want? And then that developer has the influence and leverage to make the decision, because they're going to have 6 people dating them, and then they get to choose who their suitor is, right? Like, so I mean, that's one.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, even if you look at indie darlings like Undertale, right? Like, Undertale seemingly came from nowhere and sold 2 million copies without a publisher, but Toby Fox has been building his community for 10 years, with his mods of Earthbound, with his Homestuck stuff, whatever. So that way, yes, he has a great product, but if he didn't have that initial base, that, his fervent Tumblr crowd that would be sharing it and getting the word out, it would have been one of those, like, forgotten gems that might have sold 20,000 copies, and people were like, oh, that was really good, but no one talked about it.
Well, what was really cool is I love how you pointed out leverage, dude, because I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent just in terms of, I always draw parallels between the music industry and the gaming industry. And the reason I bring this up is back home there's a band called At the Drive-In that made it really big, did really well or whatever. And then when they broke up, they became the Mars Volta and Sparta. The cool thing about what happened there is Sparta is the band that I liked, but they jumped immediately to a record label, and like right after breaking up, everyone was like, oh, we got to do something with these people, so they got Sparta signed right away. The Mars Volta didn't give a fuck about record labels, so they went off and toured their ass off and started building up a bigger fan base. So what happened was when it got to that point, record labels started looking for them. And when you do that, that's when you have leverage, because now these record labels can't tell you what to do anymore because you're the one that says, nah, I don't want that deal anymore.
And
so,
one last thing.
Yeah.
Also, these like, yeah, the leverage and like building your community, like that's super important. The other thing is like, me seeing it, I talk to publishers all the time, right? Like I work with them because they're sponsors of our other events, and I worked in publishing for a minute too. They're fucking struggling. Like they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like that's the biggest thing. I don't think that developers and the audience understand that they are trying to figure out how this stuff is working as well.
Yeah, almost nobody's able at this point in time to string together 2 indie hits in a row. Like if you look at Gone Home, right? The Gone Home people sold 2 million copies of that game, and then they spent all this money on Tacoma, and it sold like 50,000 copies. You know, and it's like, and because part of the issue is that we're releasing 5,000 new games a year on Steam. There's so much noise, and the barrier to entry is so low that it's really hard to break through and find a way to get seen.
It's yeah. I mean, I think people just have to. Developers have to strategize. Like, what is your network? How are you going to utilize your network? How are you going to utilize your base? How are you going to utilize this publisher? Yeah. PR agency, these things, you got to kind of connect these pieces into like something that will work for you, because each game is not cookie cutter. It has its own audience, its own expression. You know what I mean? Or did I say artist? Audience. Yeah, audience expression. You know what I mean? And
well, at the same time, it's also like it's kind of completely out of the developer's hand in a way. It's all you. Like if you're not buying the games, people aren't going to make them. You know what I mean? So like with Undertale, yeah, people bought that game as fucking weird as it was, and it just sold, right? So like it's based on you guys and the games you buy. So like that's why these things like Call of Duty, like they sell so much. Like why even focus on how many copies Call of Duty is going to sell? Because people are going to buy it no matter what. You know, like why are you going to make a big deal about people buying Call of Duty? That doesn't make sense. It's just people buying the video games that they buy, I think, is going to direct what's going to happen. People keep buying PUBG and Fortnite and buying their dances and stuff. That's just going to keep going. It's like loot crates. People keep spending money on them. Yeah, and you can't do anything about it. That's out of your hands. All you can do is not buy them. What was that? What was the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
All right, cool.
You want to go ahead? Is there another question?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and that's your, yeah.
All right.
That's your call.
Another
Totally.
question? Yes.
So, there are a lot of games that are not are inspired by some type of game. So, how do you, I guess, make a game not be too similar to another games already out?
That's a good question.
Look, I am of the mindset that you should never try to reinvent the wheel. If you see a game that is doing a specific thing a certain way and you like, that's it, like they know that is the correct way to do it, you should just take it wholesale. Like, like a game is more than it's just its pieces. It's a million different pieces at once. Like if you see, like how many games have we played like that are basically just variations of other games, or they have variations of different gameplay mechanics? Yeah, I mean, I think you should always put your own spin on things, but if someone else discovers a new medium or a new way of like making mini games happen, like just, if you feel it, or you can iterate on it, don't stop. I kind of like the whole like Shenzhen Chinese kind of culture of like, if you see something that's good, like iterate on it. You don't have to always reinvent the wheel every time.
You know what, if I could jump in on that just for a bit, just because I think approaching that question in the sense of if you're trying to make a game, and this is kind of the approach I took, was the idea of if you're going to make a game, you could start with a base that you're familiar with, right? So like if you're familiar with shooters and you want to make a game, you're not going to make the next Call of Duty on your own, even if you just have like 2 teams or whatever, or 2 people in your team or whatever. But the point is, it's like use a base as something to at least get started, because I think the biggest problem a lot of people tend to have when they start working on games is scope. And that is like super killer. Like if you're making a game and you just keep adding stuff and adding stuff, or you want to make a game that's like massive, it's going to take you forever, and you're going to need to know how many people are going to be on the team, who's going to do what, who's going to do this. If you think smaller, like, you know, just in a sense to start working on something, right? Like you could think of Pong and just be like, all right, well, I'm going to make the paddle a fucking missile. And then from the missile, I'm going to make the other ball just kind of explode into 3. And you know what I mean? But like you take a simple base that at least you could get started. Because it's kind of like how Matt's saying, if you're trying to reinvent the wheel in a way, you're completely starting from scratch. And I don't know if you guys agree with this, but usually when you're creating something, a blank slate isn't always the best thing to do. Because it's like, it's blank for a reason. It's scary as shit. You have to start from scratch, you know?
I mean, if you,
yeah.
I was gonna say, if you can't think of something to make, you should be working on this shit to me.
Well, yeah.
No, I'm not dismissing.
No. Of course,
but
of course, I get
so
you.
like if I wanted to make a horror game, an indie horror game, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I was like, I'm a huge fan of the Resident Evil series. I would literally I would look at Resident Evil, and I would create a game design document for a Resident Evil game. I'd look at how they handle inventory, how they handle saves, how they handle all these different things, and then I would be like, okay, which part of these suck, and which parts am I going to change? Because if you don't think about all those things, then you go, oh shit, I didn't think about saves, or I didn't think about how we're going to do this. Then you start getting into feature creep, and then all of a sudden you don't have enough money or time to do all these things. And then, because I added a save system, that actually breaks half the stuff because I didn't plan for it.
Yeah,
so understanding the model that you're trying to reach, you don't have to make the end game be anything like it, but thinking about all the elements that they did and then iterating off of that.
My approach is like, I come up, like I'll be playing a game or something, and I'll be like, it would be cool if this was this, but it had this.
Yeah.
So I have a concept of that, and it's so, like, I'm so passionate about that concept that I want to try to make it, and that's...
Well,
like,
imagine if, like, what fighting game introduced super meters for the first time? But imagine if that series was the only game series that ever had super meters, and everyone else was like, well, that's their game thing. We don't want to take that.
But there's also some, like, I'm big into hip hop, huge.
Yeah.
I don't like people who bite too hard. You know what I mean? Like it gets kind of ridiculous. So you have to identify something that is fresh. I mean, there's only so many times you could create.
I think what you do is you pick and choose. You figure out which battles are like the ones that you're gonna be like, I know what's right here, and I don't care what anyone else sells. I feel it in my soul, and I'm gonna go that direction. But anything else that you're kind of like, I don't really care about it. You steal from the best in terms of like, like you don't need, if you don't know a better way to do that system, then just use other systems.
Yeah, in a way you're saying like you don't need everything to be original.
Yes.
But like one or two things that you're super passionate about, go for that.
Yeah,
you know?
don't try to make a carbon copy of anything. Make sure it's your own vision.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's why, like Justin, I didn't take offense to that at all, man. It was just the idea of like, that's what I was approaching it more from the sense of if you're starting from scratch with nothing and you want to make a video game, start with something similar, but focus on something small. Otherwise, if it's going to be a Call of Duty thing, then it's too massive.
Red Hat, and then one more after that.
What do you think about games as a service?
You go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything. I just had a reaction.
I don't mind it. I think it's
Games
pretty
as a service, like a Netflix style, like.
No, I'm talking about
You're talking about like
Fortnite?
Yeah.
I'm not going to put out a game. I'm going to put out this one game.
like World of Warcraft subscription-based kind of thing.
I think you kind of have to do that now.
Yeah.
Well, see, again, I personally think, again, it's up to you.
So, I actually, the original Toe Jam and Earl game, obviously in 1991, you put out the game and then whatever it is, it is. I am of the mindset that I really like what Enter the Gungeon and Binding of Isaac and all these different, roguelikes have done where, they've managed to stretch out this game life cycle from a 2-year life cycle to 7-8 years. Right? Because they're continuing to iterate and make things better and figure out how to kind of perfect the game. And, for my first game, I did that, and that was a novel, basically. So you continuing to iterate on a novel is probably not the best strategy because people don't want to play that game 20 times, right? But if you're making a roguelike, you're making like a fighting game, I don't really see the problem with that. Actually, I know Kanye West is polarizing, but I remember like a year ago, 2 years ago, when he did Life of Pablo, he changed some of the songs like a week or two after release.
Oh, yeah. I
Everyone
thought that was
like,
pretty legit.
No, when
Yeah.
you release music, once it's out, it's done. It's like, why? Why not?
They are going to iterate.
I love the idea of a living album. I love the idea of a living game. It's like it's always different. You come in and they're continuing to update it.
Yeah, this gentleman was talking about publishing and stuff like that, and like making money, right? I mean, that's how we live now. It's like we have to iterate. We have to keep building it and building the community through this thing. If it works, then we give people, like you were saying, what is it called? Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah.
Like that last update was free, but it's pulling. Yeah, so they're pulling in more people, and they're not.
Whole new news cycle.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And that's what they're doing. It's like, how can we get promoted? We got to bounce, huh? Wrap it up. Well,
we have time, remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Oh, my bad. I'm like leaning back. Yeah. I guess what I was saying was, like Matt was saying, there's these weird things that happen with different platforms. Like, in order to get featured, you have to have an update or you have to have something new. So developers get buried quick. Indie developers because we don't have that promotional dollar and we don't have that influence on those platforms. So we have to figure out ways to stretch that. And some of that is the update. And now as developers, in order to make money, if we only sell 5,000 to 10,000 units, we could still build our base by it is a service. Like we're gonna do these updates, boom, 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 boom. And then that extends the life.
I think that exactly what you were saying about like games get buried really quickly, and like if you're an indie game, there's so many things coming out that with, like I said, with our novel game, when we added in voice acting, we added in like some new cameos, things like that was new articles, it was new ways of getting eyes. And each time, we didn't sell a lot of copies of the game, but each time we got news, we would sell a little bit more, or we'd get an offer to do a Humble Bundle or something.
Exactly.
Right? And then we would be chaining those wins together, getting those combos.
But I think that, like what you're talking about, some of that stuff that's really predatory because a big company is trying to figure out how to like crack this code, I think that's bullshit, like honestly. But if they're doing it for the right reasons, they have this complete product, they put out this complete product, and then they service that complete product that people really love, then that's ethical.
So you don't have a problem with it, it's the reason why you're doing it, not so much.
It's the reason, and like.
The method isn't faulty.
Exactly.
Oh no, yeah. I don't think there's a problem with that at all. It's more like how you're saying it. It's how are they using it, and obviously how is it priced? Because if you're paying now monthly for a game, and you're not getting updates as often, that's probably pretty shitty.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
it's game to game, I guess.
Because some games, like Enter the Gungeon, you don't pay for each update, right? They just give you the updates. Like Overwatch, right? Like, they constantly update and add new characters. You just paid once $40. They just want you to buy loot crates, But, some other games, I think they actually just switched World of Warcraft to, like, free, right? Which is crazy.
It's been like that for a while, but...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's still a
people are
subscription,
still
yeah,
paying
there's still a
for
subscription for, like, expansions or whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like some games, they do like you gotta pay recurring, and some games they just want to give you an update so you talk about it again.
I mean, like No Man's Sky is a great example where they just did a free update and the game's price is lower now. It's down to $29.99, but like now it's a bestseller again. It's on the top of the charts because just now people are excited, like, it's a good game now.
Yeah,
right? But like, they managed to now with these updates, like that game in the past, it was released 67 years ago, would have been dead on arrival, and people have been like, oh, that sucks. They made some money and then they were gone. But they've managed now to stretch this out now for years, and now they've continued now to make this profitable.
So I got a question to ask you, since you bring up No Man's Sky. What do you think about that situation? Should you just lie, steal, and get the money now, fix the game?
I'll jump on that right now. I'll jump on that. I think here's the thing, though. This is another thing that goes to the platform holders and the publishers. This guy was making the game, or his small team was making the game. PlayStation gave him a shit ton of money, right? There's probably some things in that are happening in the background that you're not aware of from this indie developer that he felt possibly pressured.
Like
to talk
contractually,
about.
right?
What?
But contractually?
Either contractually or he just felt an obligation that he needed to get these things, and like he may have on the back end said like feature creep may have crept in, and they may have said like, look, you're done, your money's up, like we don't have any more money, we cannot extend this any further, you got to release this shit, right? And as a creative person, you want to keep iterating on this stuff, and you're like, well, okay, I have 5 people. Okay, I don't have any money. Like, this is real now.
Yeah.
So then they had to release that shit.
When you're working with like a platform holder like that, like you're making, you know, Detroit or whatever, like with those games, it doesn't matter if there's bugs and stuff. There are release windows, and they have certain products that have to come out in certain release windows. So like when Donkey Kong 64 came out, there was a memory leak in it that was so bad that that's why they packaged it with the expansion pack. But they, instead of delaying the game, they're like, no, we need our 1998 holiday game. They don't have the same flexibility that indie developers do, where we can just be like, oh, just release
and
it
I'll give you a
whenever.
really, really good example. So, you know Mad Catz? There it is. It's like, what happened with Mad Catz is they put in millions of dollars into Rock Band. Because they were going to actually get money on the back end of Rock Band. Maybe this is inside information.
No, go ahead.
Anyway, they put money on the.
I think Kotaku broke the article, man.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So they put money into Rock Band, and they had a great like Mark Man and all these guys like built up their like Mad Catz huge. Like you saw. I mean, they helped make Street Fighter popular, right? And vice versa. But they put all this money into Rock Band, and they had a window to make all these guitars, right? And it had to be November, whatever, right? And they missed that window. Where are they at now? Like that happens. Like you got to hit these windows, even if you have like, you know what I mean, good intentions. Sometimes that stuff happens. So in that particular case with the indie developer, I think there was some stuff going in the back end that we're not aware of. It wasn't like a big shady corporation. Now, if it was a different company, like you know what I mean, then I would say, what's
Well, okay,
going on?
so like, you know, I think that with like Street Fighter 5, right, there was an issue where like they released the game without a story mode, No Man's Sky, right, where like, and it does kind of suck that yes, like people are releasing things before everything's in it, but at the same time, like it actually does also help, like, I'm glad that they released Street Fighter 5 when they can instead of saying, oh, we're going to delay it another 6 months. You know, to get the story mode. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm an idiot who bought Street Fighter 5 the day it came
so
out
the
too,
problem in specifically like Street Fighter 5, when you have iterations before that had a bunch of content,
Yeah.
and then you scale back, I think that's kind of like, as a fan, now the 5th one, I'm like, oh, okay, well you're only 25% done, but you released everything else on time. You know, so it was kind of like,
unless you market it, right? Like this is going to be like a game as a service kind
Right.
of thing, or like
Right,
you know, you
yeah.
can pay monthly.
But the problem is, no one else out, like, if I get a hardcore guy, I'm an emo. I'm the guy who bought it 6 months earlier.
Fucking A.
The problem is, you only get one, well, at least until before games as a service, you only get one first impression, right?
right.
That killed.
That's kind of ruined it.
Here's the thing, like, and this is what I think about this particular situation, and I don't want to be like sound weird about this, but like, I think that Capcom themselves, like, so game development in the U.S. and game development in Japan and game development in other areas is completely different, right? They're used to different models and iteratively approaching. He knows he's like works with a lot of Japanese folks, and so when they were coming into it, they're very stagnant on how they release shit. So they weren't used to that model. So they were like looking at like League of Legends, all these other games, and we're like, we're gonna release it like this, and it's gonna like blow up. Look at these statistics, and they release it. And it's like that. They didn't have the back end, like the technical support. They didn't have all these different things in place. The pricing was off. I was pissed off by that myself. I paid $60. I was like, what the hell is this? And now I got to pay another $60 for all these characters, and like, you know what I mean?
Well, the marketing was pretty bad too, because with that they actually told you the budget that Sony had gave Capcom, and I think that was ugly because then it was like, I think this article was $80 million, so it was like $80 million, and I don't have any of the game, so it was. Yeah.
I think it was like, I think it was just another thing where they bought, like it was a learning experience for them, not a great one. I mean, a great one probably for them, but it wasn't great for their public perception. But they made a bad move with that bot model. You know what I mean?
But I think that we're starting to get into, you know, part of this is the growing pains of globalization. You know, like I think that as we're starting to become a global world, like Japanese game companies in the past could just be like, we know these platforms better than the American developers do, so you're gonna like our shit and you're gonna take it, right? But now that American developers are now on the same basic skill level, if they understand the market better, then they're going to be able to be successful. You know, like where is Japan's Fortnite? Where they should, you know, like it's because they're not building flexible enough, you know, online
And
infrastructure.
it's also a hierarchical like system in their corporate structure that it doesn't allow them to move to be the fast moving boat. Like there's this huge ship, we're like moving, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
able to
yeah.
like adjust. Anyway, that was like random.
No, it's fascinating. Like just because even you know hanging out with Suiri and learning like how Japanese game developers do their publishing deals and stuff was like shocking to me.
Yeah, I went.
Totally different.
I went and hung out with what's the dude from Luminous? Miz
What?
from Luminous.
The wrestler?
No, dude, like the guy who created Luminous and Rez, Miz.
Oh, Mizutani?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
went out and hung out with him because he was working on a game and I was working on some possible publishing deal with him, and he told me how they like basically work as a design team, and then they're modularly structuring how they work with other like teams in Japan, and that like it. So that it's changing over. Like these guys who used to work for these big companies are now. Anyway,
Yeah.
people are trying new stuff.
Any other
No, this is all for us.
I know.
Yeah, thanks for coming to our panel about indie games. We appreciate it.
We can probably do one more question.
We can do one more question,
One more
yeah.
question. One more topic. Anybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
both of you. Do it. No, go ahead, man. Yeah, I was just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk about morale? How can that affect the team? Say if your morale was down, and your team was in the front. What would you do to try to bring morale up?
Sure. So the question's about morale. Like, if morale is low, how do you raise morale on a team?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
only
tough.
one guy, so I just slap myself and say, get the fuck out of it.
Well, I think even for
like-
yourself, you are a team of one. Like, you probably get discouraged at times, and you probably feel inspired at times. How do you move from the dark to the light?
I don't know, man. I guess I'm just always in the light. Like, there's no. I mean, it gets pretty dark, but there's worse things happening in the world, man. Like, it just depends on whatever that situation is, you know? Like, whatever it is that's keeping the team down. I mean, like, if I take it personal, like, my thing is, like, the situation at South, or I can't figure out how to program something. And yeah, you get in a really bad mood and you start breaking stuff, but like, you're just like, I got to figure this out. So like, you do whatever you can to try and find an answer to whatever that situation is. I mean, it's
like I was saying before, I string successes together. And so if I don't have a success for the team, then I actively look for success that the team can have that will help boost in a real way. Because you can be like Coach Carter, you know what I mean? You try to Coach Carter and you're like, what the fuck are you talking
Like
about? I
faking
still
it or
got,
something?
I'm only making $500 a month still. Like that's not helping me. Like where is this going? I think the thing is with morale, people want to see the vision. Like, and you're working with like smart, I mean, everyone up here is super smart. Everyone up here is really talented. I bet you we're getting paid way lower than we ever would if we worked for a company. And anyone on your team who is working for video games, if they're a programmer, a very talented artist, they can be making 6 figures easy.
Yeah.
So they're looking for your vision and where are you headed and how are you how are you getting there and what are they building along the way with you for this success?
Yeah.
If they're making video games, and especially if they're like a good engineer, especially, like they want to be having fun. They, you know, what I mean, if they're not having fun, if they're not feeling fulfilled, you know, then they're gonna like rebel. At least with our company, before I came in, I felt like one of the things I was able to help do was kind of help people see like the end of the path. You know, I think that there was a lot of just like they were lost in the woods, and to kind of just like put all of the major tasks like on sticky notes, just put it on the board, and to see, okay, this is all the stuff that we know we have to do before the game is done. And if we just put like all the must-dos and we take everything else, just put it over there, we don't have to do this. Do we think that we can get all of this done in the next couple months? It's like, yeah, that looks doable. Cool, right? And as you can see the end of the path, you can have milestones. You know, like doing our public beta was really helpful because when people saw the game and were like telling them, "Oh, this is good," I think that really helped people. Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Sam?
Oh, I was about to say, like, keeping the vision in mind, as you're saying, like, having a plan is really important. So I'm actually working on another game almost full-time as a primary gig, this turn-based JRPG, and for a long time, for like 6 months, we had no money, and I wasn't getting paid. So I was just running off savings for 6 months.
And you could be making bank.
Yeah, I could be making a shit ton of money, honestly. But yeah, like, so I was super poor. You know, I was skating to the office every single day, and like I would have to skate across the Manhattan Bridge to save like $100 a month on subway fare, and I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel because we weren't getting paid. The investor calls weren't giving us money or anything, and so I had to talk with my guy who's like, you know, managing the project. He was like, oh shit, you know. So we made a plan, and that helps a lot. Just like, even if you're in like the deepest of woods and it's super dark and you're feeling so shitty, as long as you have a plan and you know, like, okay, by this time, and actually I had a plan where I'm like, okay, if I don't make money, like if we can't get money in the next like month, then I'm just gonna fucking drop the project and I'll go work for like, I don't know, I'll apply for Google or whatever, you know? But like just having a backup plan, you know,
I think as a
just
lead,
makes you feel better.
Yeah.
It's sort of like working out too, like knowing where you want to be, and then when you get there, reminding yourself of like this is what you wanted and like
Right.
how far you've come. You know, like it's super helpful as well, because like you might have a shitty day, like, but then if you look back and go, well, 5 years ago I just wanted to break into the industry and this and that, and now I'm doing all this stuff, and yes, I failed at this thing, or this one meeting went really bad. But I got to have a meeting with this cool guy, like this big guy, and 5 years ago that would have been a dream come true just to meet that person.
And also, like, if you're working with a team, it's you have to check in with everybody on your team to know that you're meeting, you know their goals, right? And like you see where they're going, where they're headed, what they want, and you try. I mean, you can't always.
No, well, so one of my biggest problems is that I treated people who work with me like an RTS. I was like, how do I get the most value out of people? You know, how do I get the most work for the least amount of money, right? And ultimately, like, people are not machines. People have ambitions and hopes, and you got to be empathetic to those things. And if they feel like you're not listening to them, or you don't, you know, care about their future, or you're just treating them like, you know, an object to like get production out of, then you're not going to get the best out of them, because they're not going to be loyal to you.
We have one more question.
Yeah,
you want to hit that one up real quick?
Yeah.
A couple of us can't answer that. So.
Why not?
Oh, that's hilarious. I mean, I can answer that.
Okay, so for me, it's both. It was like, with my first game, I did a Kickstarter. We got a bunch of money, and you go, yeah, it's great. And you don't realize how much of that money ends up going to fulfillment and taxes, that by the end of the game, you start running out of money. And when you run out of money and you start going into your savings and you're borrowing money from people and you're starting to feel like a failure and you're not sure if you're going to be able to release it, that gets really scary, because you're like, I've just spent 3 years on this thing and I'm like super broke, and I promised people I was going to do it, and if I don't do it, people are going to say I'm a scam artist and they're going to like hate me, but I don't know how the hell am I going to do this. That's like the scariest, most nerve-wracking thing in the world. But releasing a game, and at least for my game, it started off very slowly. It ended up kind of picking up steam. It's really scary when you put it out there and like no one's seeming to react, no one seems to care, and you're like, is this it? Like, is this all this is going to happen? And I really felt like that helped motivate me to continue to hustle and promote it and not give up. But that was also really scary. So both of them are pretty bad.
I think this is a generic answer, but I think it's journey. Like, there's no after. It's not you take a moment and you're like, that was dope. But you have to take that moment, because if you don't take that moment, it passes. Like, when we released our game, we were already intersected with our next game, because I knew we needed to figure out what the next thing was. So it was hard. It took me 6 months out, and there was so much pain in that last game, that because I lost my fiance, like, I had all this crazy shit happen during that time, that like there was a lot of pain. I didn't want to deal with that pain. So after the project, it took 6 months after that project into the next project, where I had to take a breather and reflect. And when things were really rough too, I had to talk to my mentor, and that's another thing. Everyone should have mentors and stuff. And I had to go over all the things that went right. So I was like, all the things that were paining me, you know what I mean, were diluted by, damn, we were at IGN, damn, we were at EVO. what the hell? We started the
check your
mix for
wins.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to check your wins, but you have to take that time to reflect. I think that's right.
Yeah, totally. Anyone else want to chime in on this? Or any final thoughts? No? Well, does everyone know where to find the Media Indie Exchange?
Yeah, so if you guys want to play some indie games, all these guys have some dope stuff downstairs in the mix. And then, you could come and talk to us afterwards or whatever. I know there's a panel coming up.
Yeah, we'll be there until at least 6, maybe a little bit longer, showing off our games. And if anyone wants to chat with us, we're happy to talk about anything and everything.
Cool.
Yeah, I personally like talking to everybody, so if you guys have questions, personally for me anyway,
So-
stop by the booth and just chat.
Last but not least, why don't you just real quickly plug what you want people to know?
Make games, not excuses. That's it.
What game are you making?
My game's a dual-hand disaster tracker.
Got it.
Yeah. Sam?
Oh, my game's this game called Zarvot. It's about these two cubes, and they like fight each other and stuff. It's very polished.
His game is dope.
It's the most AAA game about cubes you've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Our game is At Sundown. It's a hide-and-seek multiplayer shooter in the dark. So you become completely invisible in the dark.
My game's Black Salt Corruption. It's a 3D arena fighting game.
My game's not even down there, but I'm working on Jay and Silent Bob Chronic Blunt Punch. But I host the mix.
Cool. And I made a game called Read Only Memories, which is coming out to Switch next month. But the game I'm showing off here is called Toe Jam and Earl. It's a remake of the 1991 classic. And you can check it out. It's coming out in a couple months.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.